know who that man is? Don't you know he made billions? Billions! In the earlier regimes with Kibaki and others? Not millions, billions! And you are listening to him now as your leader, as your what? You must not. You are not leaderless. That is the worst thing to say. The worst thing to say. Do you understand me? I'm just saying, you must remember where you are coming. Do not allow people to mislead you.
Thank you. Please, maybe just pass the mic. You have a mic. So I think my question to you, and why I picked it, is because from Parliament, I think the sense I'd like to get is at the community level, at the county level. You are a member of a social accountability network, and so I want to get your sense of the debate of anti-corruption, where the citizen stands, and will Morara be the only one doing the social media work, or are you mobilizing all over the country? Because unity is strength. Should we be expecting more social accountability work from across the country? Karibu.
Good evening. My name is Naomi Wairimu Muturi, a member of Kiambu Social Accountability Network, and also a member representing Kiambu County at the National Anti-Corruption Steering Committee, where our main aim is civic education. What we have done, we have tried to bring on board counties, but as per now we are across 32 counties across the country. What happens? Corruption is a broad thing which we can't deal with at once. MPs are given the mandate to oversight all the education and civic education required to be taken to the common mwananchi at the ground level. It's a constitutional requirement for them. Two, there is this thing with citizens. We feel like the MPs are doing us a favor by being in that office or doing projects for us, whereas in the real sense, we are the one doing them the favor of putting them in that office. Because if it was not for your vote and my vote, they wouldn't be in that office. But we have made them to feel like they are our gods, because anytime they do a project for us, we feel like it's an achievement. But hiyo ndio kazi yenye ulimtuma kwa ofisi kufanya. The other thing with corruption, you can't ask for accountability from your MP or any civil servant, whereas you yourself, you are not accountable for your actions. We should be accountable as individuals before we start questioning the MPs or any other civil servant. The other one is the oversight. For oversight with MPs, it provides the legitimation of government programs, priorities with projects, because when there is a project is going to be done in your community, you are a member of parliament, either is it county or the national government, will have to do a public participation. That is if there is no corruption. But if there is a corruption in it, you'll just come and plant that project. Mnaona tu mawe ikimwagwa, mkiuliza swali mnaambiwa msigari, in kazi ya mheshimiwa. And you are so proud like mheshimiwa anafanya kazi. But in that project, you don't know how much was implemented, who came up with that idea, who prioritized that project to be the first part thing. So what we do mostly, we try to show people, you have the right to question your member of parliament or any civil servant office. If they are coming to do a project, you have the right to stop that project until you know who brought this idea, who was given the project, that is the contractor, where the skilled and the non-skilled laborers coming from. You don't just sit down and say like mhesha anatufanyia kazi. Kazi gani? Did you ask for that? That mheshimiwa will sit in office and feel like in my sub-county, niliona wanasema hakuna choo. Nataka kujenga hiyo choo. But was that toilet a priority in your sub-county? The other thing that it's not there, I think in many institutions, is the inclusion of people with disability. We are trying to give them a voice and including them in all the social accountability programs that we do, so that they won't feel left out. As much as we want to kupeana our ideas there, we can't do it on our own. The civil servants offices will fight us because they feel like we are fighting them. But in real sense, we are fighting for the rights of the citizen who are there pale kwa kijiji. Ule mwenye haezi fikia the MPs. We had a survey and it showed that 3 out of 10 people are the only people who have seen or interacted with their member of parliament since the 2022 general election. Reason being, ashahama kwa hiyo mtaa. Anaishi Nairobi, hamwezi muona. Kwa ofisi yake, anaingia tu siku moja. Ile siku yenye haijulikani ni gani. So where will you ever find this person if you don't voice out your rights? Shout, you need to know when he's doing something, not just waiting for him to do something. He's supposed to be in that office every day, every working day for you. But until we realize they are not doing us a favor, we are not going anywhere.
Thank you so much. Give her a round of applause. Thank you. I'd like to welcome my sister Chenai Mukumba. She works on illicit financial flows. She is part of the wider continental movement on tax justice. And my question to her, because what is happening here has echoes or shadows. You have seen Nigerians have also tried to do their own protests. Ugandans have also tried. So probably she could give us that continental sense of what is happening and maybe answer the questions of how do we stop what are like emerging continental corruption networks. Maybe you saw in the news the other day, a famous politician called Livondo Stanley was in some saga in Zambia. Previously, we have heard stories of about an assassination in Zimbabwe that is linked to gold scams in Kenya and Uganda and DRC. So it seems there is some connectivity on these kinds of issues. So how do we stop that? And maybe give us a brief on the UN Tax Convention and the debt issue that is facing a lot of African continents. Welcome, Chenai.
Thanks, Leonard. Good afternoon, everyone. As was mentioned by Leonard, my name is Chenai Mukumba, and I work for an institution called the Tax Justice Network Africa. And we spend a lot of our time thinking about the very issues that are quite central to this particular meeting, which is how and why should we be generating tax? For what should it be being used? And what are some of the ways that tax itself is not maintained within the country where it's generated, right? And what should we be thinking about if the tax that we generate isn't being directed to where it is? So I'm going to start off with Leonard's first question. He asked about this issue of illicit financial flows. Illicit financial flows is basically what happens when a country has generated a certain amount of tax, but then due to corrupt practices by politicians as well as businessmen, which was being referred to just now as grand corruption, this money ends up leaving our borders. So there was a report that was published in 2015 that indicated that as a continent, we lose on an annual basis $50 billion. So every single year, due to corrupt practices by businesses, by politicians, that's how much we're losing. And the reason this is important is because when you take that into consideration, there's so many developmental objectives that we need to achieve as a continent that could have been addressed if that money had not only been maintained within the continent, but then also directed to where it needs to go. Now, over the years, unfortunately, we've actually seen that amount increase. There was a report that was released close to 2 years ago that indicated that now the amount of money that we lose as a continent is closer to $90 billion. We've seen it almost double, right? Which means something is not working, right? There's something within our government, our business sector, our economies that's resulting in all of this money that's being generated within our economies leaving. And the reason this is important is when you think about this continent, people like to refer to it as the dark continent, the most underdeveloped continent, but this is where the wealth of this world resides. Yet we have some of the highest poverty rates, inequality rates, lowest education numbers, lowest health numbers. And why is that? So, to speak to what Leonard just mentioned, we find ourselves at a moment in time where I think people are sick and tired of starting to see these statistics that make no more sense, right? How we can be the richest continent but have some of the worst poverty statistics. And so this issue of our resources, how we are raising them and how we are being utilized over the past couple of years has started to come up in a number of different countries. So you remember, for example, a couple of years ago in South Africa, there was the Fees Must Fall campaign, right? South Africa is supposed to be one of the richest countries in this continent, yet has one of the lowest education numbers, right? And now, of course, there was what's happening now in Kenya being replicated in Uganda. We're seeing the same thing in Nigeria. We're seeing the same thing in a number of different countries. But over and above that, I think you're also starting to see, even in West Africa, for those of you that are following these conversations, there's just a general dissatisfaction by citizens with regards to the way in which their money is being generated and used and sometimes being taken out of the country and subsequently not being able to go where it's supposed to go, right? And so because of that, I think for me it's important to recognize that what's happening here is part of a much, much bigger piece of work that's happening across the continent and even more broadly, even in other global south countries. Again, for those of you who follow the news, you'll see that in Bangladesh a couple of weeks ago, something similar was happening. So I say that to give some context to say that we are at a specific moment in time where we're starting to see the power of citizens, more specifically the power of youth, begin to hold their governments to account. And I think forums like this are incredibly important to make that known. As was mentioned earlier, again by the Honorable here, our leaders, when they're in positions of power, are ideally in those positions of power to serve the citizenry. When you think about the social contract, right? The reason we give taxes, the reason we give contributions from our income or whenever we purchase something is so that our leaders are then able to direct those resources to where they need to go. But when we start to see underfunded health, underfunded education, that means that the social contract is broken. And when it's broken, as was mentioned earlier, people then start to say, why are we even paying our taxes? Because quite frankly, if you're paying taxes and not seeing those resources directed where they need to go, you end up paying for the same service twice, right? Because you're paying for the government to make sure that your public hospitals are working, but if they're not working, you then need to find a way to pay on your own, using your own means for that same service, right? So indeed, we find ourselves where the social contract is broken. We're not seeing the level of accountability that we need to see from our leaders. And as I mentioned, this is not just here, it's happening across the continent. The other thing I want to say about why this is such an important moment is that internally, right, we are seeing at national level these conversations happening. But when our resources leave our countries, they find themselves in tax havens, right? They find themselves in banks of these richer countries. We also find ourselves at a moment in time when at the United Nations, and this is to respond to Leonard's second question, African governments are starting to say, hold on a second, Yes, there's work that we need to do domestically, but let's not forget that when our monies are leaving our countries, they are finding homes in the very same countries, right, that call us corrupt, that call us inept. So that accountability not only needs to be done here domestically in rooms like this, but also at the international level, right? So there's a conversation that's happening now that's essentially creating a platform to say we also need to hold to account where those multinational companies are based, right? The ones that are then taking these companies out. We also need to hold to account the countries that have the banks that are very happy to keep the resources that are being looted from this continent, right? And then say to us, until you sort out your own issues, we're not going to give you money back. There's also an injustice, even at that level, that needs to be looked at, right? So this conversation about illicit financial flows, about corruption, about our resources is incredibly important. I've been giving sort of broad issues about how much we're losing as a continent, but Kenya, the statistics, when you look at those numbers, show that on an annual basis, we're losing close to $200 million. Now, when you think about where that money, if it was retained within our economies and country, within Kenya, could go, it's really endless when thinking about the particular deficiencies within our countries. So I think for me, the point I want to say is that when we're calling for reform, we need to be thinking about this issue of illicit financial flows, this money that's leaving our countries, right? We need to be thinking about how we hold our governments to account, right? To make sure that the very money that we are giving them is subsequently then put where it needs to go. And if it doesn't, it's important for us to then think about what are the mechanisms that are available, right? For us to now then say, you haven't played your function, you haven't played your role, therefore, as a citizenry, this is what we want to put in place. So I think for me, one of the things that I want to introduce to this discussion about corruption is, yes, let's think about our political leaders, but also let's think about the behavior of these multinational corporations that are in our countries taking money out. And let's also think about the corruption even at the international level where our monies are being sent. This is to say, there are so many different layers within this conversation, and there are so many different entry points that we need to tackle when trying to figure out how to address it. And this particular moment, there is something unique about it. And I say this, as I mentioned earlier, because you're seeing it across the continent, you're seeing it across developing countries, you're seeing a rising in citizenry saying that enough is enough. There is more than sufficient resources within our countries, within our continent, to get us to where we need to be. There is absolutely no good reason why we have the poverty rates we have, why we have the inequality we have, and therefore, because of this, we need to hold all of these different layers that I've been saying to account in order to start to address this from a very systemic view. So I hope that answers some of your questions.
Thank you so much. Give a better round of applause. So, as you know, if you consider what we've spoken about on the panel, what you enjoyed in the skit, and also the presentation before, you might feel that maybe this thing is so vast and it's so layered. But at EATGN, we've kind of put it into a simple 5-pillared approach, which I dare say, as had been asked before, I think you can use on your next date. Because it was said when you're going on a date, ask about that. So there are just 5 things, very simple. On any issue, was there participation? Is there awareness? Do these policies cater for and ensure non-discrimination? Do the people feel empowered? And is any of these processes in public finance management legitimate? But then, as with all things tax and public finance, some of this best emerges when you ask questions. And so I want to put it to you, members of the audience. If you have any questions to the panelists, kindly raise your hands. There's a gentleman there. What's your name? Bibo. Any lady? Abibu, you can proceed and you'll share the mic with your colleague there. And then as we wait for any other questions. So with that, with any question to Honorable Shakil, he'll also be explaining about his work as a member of APNAC, that's the Parliamentary Network on Anti-Corruption. Welcome, Abibu.
Yes, najua watu wamechoka, so I won't take much of your time. My question goes directly to Wonmogo. Yes, mine is simple. Thank you for your insight, and we are happy that you are one of the few legislatures that still stand for what they believe in. But maybe just to ask, do you have a framework, or maybe how many young people are you mentoring, leaders of integrity, to be able to take power and maybe bring the change that we are talking about, because we understand some of the challenges that young people are facing, and even women, to get into the leadership. So as a person who believes in a very value-driven leadership, is there a kind of mentorship that you're doing towards that? And then secondly, in relation to that, I run a community-based organization. I volunteer there. I'm committed to be able to cascade this information down there. Is there a way as a legislator you can be able to support such cause so that we can be able to build a movement of a very conscious citizens who are ready to be able to make informed decisions and choices when it comes to 2027, maybe, or maybe in between, because as it stands also, Parliament stand dissolved. Last but not least, when we talk about Chapter 6 of the Constitution on aspect of leadership and integrity, I don't know what is the problem, because currently, I'm sorry to say, I don't need even to be sorry, we have thieves in Parliament. One of them is my member of Parliament from Embakasi North. In 2018, he misappropriated 40 million. In 2024, another 51.3 million, but still get elected. But each and every time when we talk about integrity, Chapter 6 of the Constitution, we get a lot of barriers from the members of Parliament. So maybe in your own thinking, what needs to be able to be done so that we can be able to realize and fully implement Chapter 6 of the Constitution, so that we get rid of these thieves, which at the end of the day, they always find their way into the ballot box.
Thank you. I think let Honorable respond to that, because there are 3 questions, as also we wait for any other panelists to raise their hands, and then I can kindly note them. You'll be next. Thanks. Go ahead.
What can we do? Chapter 6, I was on the Constitution Review. My number was 347. We spent a lot of time on this. Laws are there as policy. They must be implemented and they must be enforced. Ours are better laws than in Philippines. Ours are better laws than in Rwanda. Don't have to go far, go to Rwanda. A border driver knows what he's going to do is to put a helmet on. If he doesn't, the police or the military are going to beat him up. You throw a piece of paper in Rwanda and you know what will happen. Impunity. Chapter 6 does not stand by itself. Chapter 6 must be supported by action and immediate punishment. Punishment from the people as the citizens against corruption, punishment by the executive, punishment by the judiciary. How come you are getting DP saying that we are not going to prosecute Oparanya, whereas the EACC is saying that he has law, he has crimes? Oparanya is my friend. In Parliament, God is my witness. There was only one person who objected about Oparanya. Find out who that person was. It only takes one person, my brother. APNAC, as African Parliamentarians Against Corruption, we are less than 15. Actually, on the books, we should be, every member of parliament should be a member of that anti-corruption. But in fact, we are less than maybe 30. Of 30 or 40, in the 10th parliament, 5 of us stood up every time. It only needs that. 5 goes to 6, goes to 10, goes to 15. The reason, the strength is the people. Give me the strength, and I will name and shame. Remember what my dear friend Muskari Kombo did. He named and shamed. We are here again. We need to name and shame. We want to talk about Pandora Papers. We want to talk about other things. Why are you quiet? Why are you quiet? You should be saying this. If you lead a Citizens Against Corruption movement, I will be there with you. I shall be there. You lead that citizen. I'm seeing there's a walk against integrity. Change that name. What does a walk against integrity means? Change the name. Call it Citizens Against Corruption. Change the name. That is what will happen in Bangladesh. That's what happened in India. Change the name. Change the emphasis. Integrity, Kiswahili, I don't know what it is mean. Change the name. So, TI, the first thing you do, you've got time. You've got time on the 28th of September. Change this name. Integrity Walkathon. What does that mean? Ini wazungu bwana. See, this is what we want to need. What we want is Citizens Against Corruption. We don't need this. What's wrong with this? The same thing. Integrity Walkathon. We want Citizens Against Corruption in Kisumu, in Mombasa. What did you do with Gen Z? That's what you did. Help us with that one. So that is that one. And the African Parliamentarians Against Corruption, we are about 40 of us. We try and make a change within Parliament. And small changes are very big. There was a time that in Parliament people used to sign for somebody else. I used to sit there, and as he came and signed for somebody, I said, "Wana una fine nini?" Say, "Who are you? Are you a prefect?" I said, "No." They would sign for 3 people, I would cancel. I say, "These people are not here." In the 11th Parliament, the Speaker called me, and over the 10th Parliament, they called me, they wanted to say that there's powers and privileges you are misused. In the 11th Parliament, they called me and said, "Listen, Shakil, we are going to put an electronic card. If you put electronic, you must put electronic card and you will speak." We also pushed for Kidole, because the electronic card, they started giving other people. Sergeant at Arms was giving others. People were putting in for the others. And then find out what we did. I saw people with cards, 50 cards, and 5 people sitting in Parliament. My job was to take the card off and put it back in. Take it off. They nearly beat me up. That's what's required. We put Kidole. Do you know that the whole Westminster Parliament of Britain paid airfare for myself, Muskari Kombo, and Isaac Mora to go all the way to Britain to tell them what we did? And all we did is Kidole. Do you know that British Parliament does not have that Kidole? It does not. The British Parliament does not have that card, electronic card, with which you cannot speak. It does not. The Speaker of the National Assembly said, "You will not speak until you put your card in." And sometimes they will say, "Oh, somebody forgot the card." Now we've spoken to the Speaker and said, "You must insist. If you do not bring your card, you don't put it in, because when you put your card in, they know what time you came, what you said, and how you said it." The whole Westminster Parliament and the American Parliament, I challenge you to tell me which parliament has got that. So these are small things we are making changes. So that is what APNAC is. Finally, what my dear lady said here. STAR initiative, Stolen Asset Recovery. 15 years ago, we as Kenya, and God is my witness, I wish TI was here. We were in Panama. We headed the initiative of stolen asset recovery. We call it STAR. Stolen asset recovery. The assets are sitting. We went to Geneva. We found a big hotel by Mobutu. We saw so much money. We found that fellow, the former Chris Okemo's money in Jersey. Chris Okemo's money in Jersey took so long to come here. And when they finally sent it to us, less than 20% of what is stolen, then they come and tell us, the British Crown agents say, we shall decide how you are going to spend it. Jamani, we don't want, ni pesa ni yetu. You stolen from us. What about this chicken gate? The money is sitting there and they have it, and the British government has our money. The Americans have our money. The Swiss have our money. And I go and ask Switzerland, why can't you send us the And they know what they say. Oh, you see, because of legality, you have to get these special lawyers. Am I right? These special lawyers. And the special lawyers come and they're sitting, they say, we are ready to get the money for you. And say, but Jumani, how much will you charge? This is our rate. Yeah? We haven't got the money. Right now, as I speak, I was talking to my colleague here. What do you think our debt is? Tell me. What is the debt? What do you think? What is our public debt? You've heard it, but just tell me. Somebody tell me. 5 million, 10 trillion, how much? 11 trillion. You're wrong. It's over 30 trillion, 20 plus. There is no forensic audit of what is our debt. Then the other issue is, what is our contingent liability? Just Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, just them. There was a case in Britain that there was agreed by arbitration because our Attorney General did not go in time or whatever. Not this current one, some time back. Arbitration. I think the arbitration amount is 4 billion shillings that has been judged against this country just because somebody didn't go. Isn't that a contingent liability? You know that. You should be put in our debt. If the court of Britain says this is it. What happened the other day, not long ago, when this country agreed to pay, I don't know who it was, what is it? We paid some money for Goldenberg or something, so that we could get another loan. Anglo Leasing, we paid for something we never got, so that we could be given a more loans. What about Eurobond? Do you know that the American government has put a block on Eurobond? Because more than 60% of our Eurobond never came back to this country. It is sitting in account somewhere else. So those are the things we need you to do. I think those are the 3 questions you asked me.
Okay. Yes. Thank you very much. My name is Robin Muremi Karani. I run an organization called Ujana na Ujuzi. I'm also an advocate of the High Court by profession. My question goes to Madam Mukubi. I hope I pronounced that right. I have listened to you talk to us about how we can change the focus from our political leaders to what the multinational companies are doing. And my question from my side is, what role is the Tax Justice Network playing in terms of building the capacity of grassroots organization to be able to identify these illicit financial flows, and also how to work around them? Why I say that is because I come from here in Nairobi, and the things that you're talking about that are happening in multinational companies are exactly what is happening in our county governments. I will give just small illustrations. Our governor collects revenue in terms of land rates, in terms of parking from the Nairobi citizens. But we cannot, up to today, we cannot be able to ascertain how much was collected from a particular ward. And that is to say that we only rely on his information to know exactly how much he he collected from Nairobians. We do not know that math. He alone can explain that to us. And then once it comes to he has collected the revenue, he has gotten an equitable share from the national government, once he starts implementing what he calls his flagship projects, then we start seeing aspects of those corrupt practices. How do I know that? Now, number one, he promises to do a school feeding program. In the national budget, we have the school feeding program being funded for all counties. Then he has his own budget for the school feeding program. And then he comes and calls it dish in a county and tells us he's building kitchen. But those kitchens are again being built by an non-governmental organization called Food for Education. So at the end of the day, we are not even sure if he says this kitchen costed us 30 million, we are not sure how much came from the county, how much came from the national government, and how much came from the non-governmental organization. He goes further. He says we want to do a governor's cup, but he wants the governor's cup to be called by him. So he has the county do budget for a governor's cup, and then he has his foundation, he calls it Sakaja Foundation, to be the main sponsors so that the cup is called Sakaja Cup. But at the end of the day, once we get the reports for our finances, it says that Sakaja Foundation was sponsoring the event, but the county also has a budget allocation for that governor's cup. Now, my only problem in all this is that at the end of the day, if we all understand this, and we all know this, and you guys are fighting tax justice from the top down, how do we get to bridge that gap that we, grassroots organization, can be fighting for that tax justice straight here from our county governments? That was my question. He had said that there was a question that Mheshimiwa did not answer about mentoring young people.
Okay, thanks for that question. I think maybe before I jump into it, it's important to make sure that we are tackling corruption. What I was trying to say is at every single level. Because corruption is systemic, right? And so what I was trying to say is that even as we're thinking about corruption that's happening at the subnational level, the national level, we also need to be thinking about corruption that's happening regional, international level, because the example that's just been given here, right? There's Kenyan money sitting in other banks. That's also an accountability that we need to be calling for, right? There's no reason why that money should be there. But to your point, I think that's a very good example that actually happens in a number of situations, right? Where there's a number of different donors or funders giving money to a specific project or activity, right? And then somebody else claiming responsibility for having done the thing. So as TJNA, whilst we are based here in Nairobi, we work very closely with national level institutions that then, in their part, then work with institutions that are at the grassroots level. And they're supposed to do capacity building in order to tell them how they themselves can actually demand to see the actual statement of expenditure, right? Whenever the member of parliament, for example, has completed an activity, or at the end of the year, they say that this is how they've spent their money. They're well within their rights to call for that accountability. But I think one of the things we found is many individuals don't actually know that they can do this. So essentially what we do is we work with partners that raise the awareness of particular grassroots individuals to say that you can actually do this. You can actually go to your member of parliament and say, please, can we see the way in which the money that you had to spend on our behalf was spent? And I think also what was mentioned here, you can also call for an audit, right? And an audit should be able to show you to what extent what he or she has been saying is actually valid. So I think the point here is that there's a lot of awareness raising that needs to happen so that people at grassroots know the power that they have to hold to account. And I think there's a lot more work that, you're right, we can do. But I think generally those that are more informed, essentially in basic conversation, I think once communicated, we start to see more people starting to hold their members of parliament and other people in positions of leadership to account. So it's really just to say that you can actually ask. you can actually go to the Member of Parliament and say, we'd like to see the way in which resources were spent and explain the reason why. That is something as a citizen you have the right to do.
Thanks. There being no other questions, I see there was a direct constituent question to you. And as a representative, I can't let that just go. I think the youth are looking for mentorship, so maybe just a brief response and then we can close. Consider. Sorry, I hadn't seen you. Then go ahead.
Maybe to add on your question, I had told you you have the right to question your Member of Parliament or the financier of that project. You have the right to know how much was being allocated for that project, how much was used. Either they used more than they had allocated, where did the extra money come from? You have the right to question that. Another challenge I want to give you, the last year finance bill had the SHIF bill, and that SHIF was never haikutumika that year. This year, the bill that iliangushwa, the same SHIF ilikuwa, but with a higher amount. You have a mandate kujiuliza, is the money that was not used in the previous financial year returned to Treasury, or where does that money go? You have the right to question those questions. And if they can't give you that information, you have the right to involve those people who are involved with those cases.
Thank you. Honorable Shabir?
I'm going to answer that one. How do you stop this? Stop paying taxes. What will happen? Stop it. Usilipe tax. Yeah? You will see how it hurts people. Langata stopped paying taxes. Remember Karen? They stopped paying taxes. About the Nairobi city, I can only tell you what we did. Kisumu, I was told I'm a very bad mayor because my councillors did not get anything. They didn't get land, they didn't get this. We used to collect 1 million shillings a day. 360 million shillings a year. Kisumu city. Kisumu County came 5 times the city. 20 years later, and they are bragging that they are making 1 billion shillings. There's something wrong. As far as mentorship is concerned, leadership is not inborn, it is one that is developed. You cannot take youth and teach them leadership if they do not want to learn. I have tried, and I will continue to try. But the thing is, you must show the desire to be part and parcel. I have been to Nyalenda, my friend, I know where you come from. We have tried. The problem that we are having is even the Aga Khan institution did a research. 80% of the youth say corruption is not a problem as long as I get my money. It's the truth of the issue. So we have to now redefine and say, who are we talking about? This morning or this afternoon, I met a youth. He came and he talked to me and told me, Shakil, I see you have not done this, you have not done that. I have proof. I have proof here. They are sitting here. They were there. So it is one that you need to define. What have I done? As a leader, I will try my level best not only to produce and give mentorship to any youth, but I wish also to do it for every other person that I can manage. If the youth are there and we can give them mentorship, right now, at this moment in time, we have sponsored 150 youth who are in a 2-week fully intensive course so that they can be ready for Form 4. Then when we go from Form 4 to the university, what do we want to get from that youth of university? So the definition of what we are doing to mentor is a two-way street. Do you understand me? I need somebody who is willing to be mentored, and I wish to mentor. Right? And we have an environment for mentoring. Do you understand me? We are ready for that. We are ready. I have never shared this much with anybody else. There was a time youth was 18. Youth was 18, finished, 19th, you were not a youth. In Britain, in the European states, at the age of 18, many of the parents are sending their children out of the home. And those are mostly the rich people. Go and learn how to study. Go and learn. Our youth, I am also guilty. My son and my daughter, I don't treat them, I'm always pampering them. Tume poteza. I was 18 years old or 17 years old. I went to got a driving license. My brother will remember. I came home, I used to drive under provisional license. My father was well known in Kisumu, was quite an influential guy. And he told me, I saw you driving a car without a driving license. I said, no, Dad, look here, I have my driving license, I passed. He says, really, you passed? I said, yes. He said, okay, come with me. He took me to the driving test. And my father used to be something in the police. He was helping police surgeon. He says, this boy of mine, he passed his driving license. The inspector said, yes, he's a good driver. I go, what did he say his age was? Is he over 18? He said, yeah, he should be over 18. Did he say he's over 18? The inspector says, I was told he was over 18. He's lying. Put him in. It's the truth of the issue, who knows? I was put in for the evening. Only my mother got me out on the Friday, Thursday. Do you understand what I'm saying? So what I'm trying to say for you youth, as well, you are my employer. You called me one mogo, thank you very much. Surely, a muindi like this cannot be leading you for 20 years if there wasn't a possibility of somebody else coming. I want that possibility. I don't want to be leading you all the time. What have I got that the others haven't got? Where we have to deny, we don't want to deny the youth. We don't. Please let's discuss the way forward. You as Kisumu constituent, come and give me a way forward. I don't know. Maybe I am losing it. Yeah? Maybe I'm losing it, but my intention is to be with the youth all the way. I think that is the only answer I can give. I'm ready and I'm willing.
Thank you. I am dissuaded with continuing, but I think we have to close it at this point in time. I'd encourage that maybe you just speak to him in private after this session, because right now the program has to continue. The thing is, there's something.
No, somebody asked a question about EACC. That was the power to prosecute. I support that EACC must be given the power to prosecute. It should not only be the DPP. Let us have EACC with the power to prosecute. And this is all criminal prosecutions. You cannot have people who have committed murder, people who have done A, B, and C, walking around and becoming our ministers. Jamani, this is not possible.
Thank you. Unfortunately, the rule of law, I'm being told that for questions, maybe tomorrow, you can bring it next forum. I am urged that we should close this session. I think I want to urge you, members of the public, do not give up. If I tell you that the first time we did the finance bill participation, we were 3 of us, the building, the room, there was a room I think you are located right here. I did not know what to do. And I think it was open for the first time or something. There was even a former parliamentarian who just came thinking that his colleagues would let him in. And the sergeant at arms told him to go back, and I gave him my tie because he came in a coat, but the rule says standing orders, you have to come in a tie. This was Kiriro Wangugi. That was the first SGR. There's lots we need to learn. Lots of opportunity. Organizations like TGNA have lots of resources on their website. Ourselves as EATGN, if you go to our website, you'll find human rights-based approaches and all these other documents that are simplified and can help you plug into a lot of the spaces. And so thank you very much. Rely on Okoa Uchumi, rely on ActionAid and all these colleagues. They will guide you accordingly. I really am feeling very blessed to be in your midst, and thank you so much for coming. I wish you all the best in the rest of this program. Thank you. And
Thank
now
you very
I
much.
hand it back to you to guide us.
Okay. A round of applause for them as they take their seat. Thank you very much, our panelists. For sharing your insights with us. And as they take their seats, I believe all of us, those of us who are still in the room, agree that there is need for continuous learning. Today we have unlearned and possibly relearning on best ways to be able to do this work and carry it forward with pride, because we know what cost we have to pay. I do not want to say much because time has really, we are beyond time. And I'm really sorry to the person I have not been able to allow to ask questions. It is 6. I can no longer keep people here. But we still have sessions tomorrow. And I believe tomorrow, being that it's the last day, will be a climax of its own. So let's come with those questions. Let's be prepared. And hopefully tomorrow we will have much more sessions where the audience gets to contribute to the conversation, just not asking questions, because I believe the solutions are with us. So as we end, please pick anything that you have learned here. Let that be your guiding torch. And till we meet tomorrow, I want to say thank you for blessing us with your time and taking the time to teach us and learn with us. We didn't start with a prayer, so I request the IT to give us a national anthem, one stanza, and then we can all leave. IT, are we ready ama tujaribu kivyetu? Tujaribu kivyetu? Sijiamini vile. But we can all do it without me being on the mic. Let's do the first stanza. English or Swahili? Swahili. Thank you very much. Have a great evening. See you tomorrow. And let's try and keep time to